Good evening. I'm trying to do a few things tonight. Let's see if I can do this. Let me see if I can do all of this at the same time. How's everyone doing? I'll give you a few minutes to come on here. Let me do live on Instagram, and I got Clubhouse going on here as well. Yeesh. Let's see if we can do this. Okay. I've not done Clubhouse and all of this, and I've not monitored any of this, but I am officially going live, not only on Facebook, but YouTube, Instagram, and now I'm going to do Clubhouse. So this is my first time on Clubhouse as a moderator. So let's see how this all goes. And I'm juggling multiple things. As you come on, I want you to come on and tell me where you're from. Tell me, some of you have names on on Instagram that I can't. I see Justice for Jace. How are you, love? Dog Sugar. Tell me your name. And then as you come on, just tell me who you are, where you're from, all of that. Love to know. I like engagement. Let me introduce myself. I am actually Dr. Torri J. Evans Barton. I am the founder and CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation, where we reunite fatherless children and we reconcile homes. And so I am really intentional at this moment. That's my word for right now. That's my word for at least the next 6 months, where I am intentional about everything that I'm doing. And I am finishing up a series that I started 3 weeks ago called The Pains of Co-Parenting. Tonight, I'm going to take my time because this is a different approach. Many have their idea as to what co-parenting looks like and the pains of that and how that moves and all of those things. And over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about a few different aspects of this. I'm going to recap really quickly. As we talked about the pains of co-parenting, one of the reasons that there is such high conflict is parents miss their children when they're not with them. That's the fact. Like, they miss their children, and in missing their children, it's very painful for them to endure not having their children with them. Doesn't make it right, but it's one of the reasons that exists. And caring for our children is actually rooted in, DNA stuff and we normally live with our families and our fathers and all of that. And so when we don't, this begins to fuel the pain that exists. It fuels the pain, and it creates conflict that many people just see it as conflict with the other party. You just see it as you're in conflict with the other party. You don't think about it as this hurts. And in it hurting, I got an issue with this other person just simply because it hurts. I read some things for you guys, specific clips and quotes from some blogs where one lady literally would fall out every time her children would turn the corner with the dad. And she lived in a place of just depression while her children weren't in her care. And I see that with dads all the time. A lot of dads only get, 6 to 10 days max a month with their children because it's every other weekend. And then it's the fifth weekend. And there's only 3 of those in a year. You don't get that much time with your children. And so dads are having moments where they're even sad when their children aren't with them. And they have to live in that space and place where their children aren't with them for weeks at a time. And so there's depression that sets in. There's challenges that set in concerning their children not being there. And that fuels the conflict within the co-parenting situation. Your pain, I put here, this is something that I quoted. Your pain is fueling your conflict. And the truth is, it's not the conflict that drives the other parent, crazy per se. It's the fact that it hurts to be away from your children. And I ask questions like, how do you manage that? What do you do? Mindfulness is one of the things you do. Recognizing that this too shall pass, finding different ways to cope with it, whether that's exercise, whether that's one of my fathers, he does bowling. You have all of these different things that you need to do because you've got to enjoy your life when your children aren't in your care. So do you live in misery while they're not with you? You shouldn't. Then the other one that we talked about last week, is the fact that the co-parenting causes you to revisit the brokenness of the relationship. And as you're revisiting this brokenness, it's putting you constantly in a place of PTSD. If you haven't healed it, you're constantly being placed in a position where all you're thinking about is the pain in the midst of the exchange. And even before the exchange, there's anxiety that's taking place, that's starting the fueling. And that anxiety is starting to get you to a place where you're feeling like, whoa, this is about to be off the Richter scale. I'm already planning for some craziness. I'm already setting it up. I'm already in that position. I can recognize that there are some people who choose to be manipulated, who choose to be taken advantage of just to have access to their children so they don't have to deal with all of that. I recognize that there are people who do that. They choose to pay up. They choose to do whatever they have to do to have time with their children because they don't want to revisit the brokenness of the relationship. But I also realize that there are people who do that for the number 3 reason, which we're going to talk about tonight. I want to read something that I saw earlier today that I think is it's a very powerful statement. And I better, let me see, because I pulled it from a friend's Instagram page. She posted it today and I was like, girl, like that's a whole conversation. And it goes well with what I'm talking about tonight, right? So I want to read this to you. Many abused children cling to the hope that growing up will bring escape and freedom. But the personality formed in the environment of coercive control is not well adapted to adult life. The survivor is left with fundamental problems in basic trust, autonomy, and initiative. She approaches the task of early adulthood, establishing independence and intimacy, burdened by major impairments in self-care and cognition and in memory and identity and in the capacity to form stable relationships. She or he, I'll say, is still a prisoner of their childhood, attempting to create a new life. She re-encounters the trauma. Many of you are re-encountering this trauma over and over and over again. And you don't realize why you're re-encountering the trauma. And it goes into this meme that I saw, and I'll post it on the Fatherless Generation Foundation page once we're done. But you're missing some of the fundamental aspects because of the abuse that you've actually endured. And so that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. The number 3 reason co-parenting is such high conflict and painful to you is because it causes you to revisit the unhealed trauma of your childhood. Now, let me say this. Got to say this to you. I talk a lot about going back to your childhood. I'm not asking you to live in your childhood. I'm not asking you to live in your childhood. What I'm asking you to do is visit it. And many of you won't even visit your childhood just for a moment. You refuse to revisit it in order to heal your present. But your present is literally fueling the conflict in your co-parenting situation. It's like your childhood is fueling the conflict in your co-parenting situation because it requires you to go back to the place when your father didn't show up, or when your father and your mother did a hostile exchange, or you had to go to the police station. Many of you remember going to the police station, doing exchanges with your parents, and you can't believe you got yourself in the same situation. And I said it before, you made these vows to yourself that now you realize that you actually didn't even hold your end of the bargain to yourself. And you have to repent for that. As I said a moment ago, I'm going to take my time with this because I know that there are plenty of conversations around co-parenting, and it's like co-parenting with a narcissist, co-parenting with so-and-so and so-and-so. But I want you to dig into you tonight. Where is your pain and your trauma causing the challenges of co-parenting within your own situation? We're not thinking about our trauma. We get into new relationships and we go, well, I'm over that one and I've moved on. Many of you still haven't moved on. You haven't even moved on from your childhood. So you definitely haven't moved on from the relationship because the relationship now has you in a place of PTSD and a whole bunch of other behavioral disorders and challenges that you aren't thinking about because all you're thinking about is the conflict with the other person. I want to ask you this question. Could just 1%, of the conflict you're having with your ex concerning co-parenting, could just 1% of it be based on your own childhood trauma? Is that possible? Is that raise your hand if you're like, well, that could be possible. I'm just, because many people don't want to acknowledge the part they play in the situation. Many people don't want to acknowledge the part that comes from within their own situations. We don't want to believe that we have trauma. I ain't got no trauma. I'm good. Are you though? I just read a quote to you. And if I need to read it again, which I think I may, just because I said I'm going to take my time tonight because this is different. And I know many of you are just so used to, well, I can't co-parent with a narcissist, and I can't do this with a narcissist, and I can't, and she's not giving me my time, and he's not doing this. Many of you, that is being fueled from your fatherless journey and your fatherless experience, but yet you refuse to acknowledge it. Many of you are willing to be manipulated. Many of you are willing to just pay the price and pay the Pied Piper to have a relationship with your children because you're trying to avoid the conflict. Really, though, you're not avoiding the conflict at all because the conflict is still within you. The conflict is still within you. And you can't see that because you're so focused on the current situation. You can't live in the present if you don't deal with the past. You got to go deal with it. Just go visit it. I ain't asking you to live in it. I'm going to say that multiple times tonight. No one's asking you to live in the past. We're just simply asking you to go visit it in order to get some of the things done that you need to get done in this season. Okay? So let me go some places with you tonight because I got some things I want to present and show to you, read to you, and get you in a position where you recognize this could be you. I want to tell you a little story. I was reading some of the studies as I prepared for this on high conflict divorce, high conflict separations, breakups, and all of those things. I know many people don't want to believe it because we hold our mothers at such high levels. But there's a study that shows, and it literally shows that 40% of mothers reported that they have interfered with the non-custodial father's visitation on at least one occasion to punish the ex. 40%. And I think it's a book. Is it a book or a study? This is a book. Is this a book? No, this is a study. I'm sorry. A frequency of visitation by divorced fathers. And the study is by Sanford Braver. And it's from 1991. But that's the thing. 40% of women, and if that was in 1991, child, how many are doing it at this point? I want to read you another one. The former spouse, mother, was the greatest obstacle to having more frequent contact with the children. I got to ask, because some of the stuff I'm reading right now is about qualitative and quantitative research, and I'm doing something right now. And so I want to tell you that part of the research that I have questions about is, what was this spouse's background? What made this person say, yeah, I interfere, or yeah, I'm going to be an obstacle for the dad to contact. I'm going to put money that it's due to the fact that they grew up fatherless. There's another study from 1989, and it's in the Journal of Marriage and Family. And it says mothers may prevent visits to retaliate against fathers for problems in the marital or post-marital relationship. Like these are studies. This is not, I'm not making this up. I'm not making it about me. But could it be because these individuals didn't have dads in their lives? And so the challenges create the situation. They decide to create high conflict. Not allowing someone to see their children is conflict, and it's high conflict. The unresolved conflict in your relationships, in your separation, in your divorce, and in your custody battle, it has a much deeper component. And that component goes back into your own childhood and the context in which you see fatherhood and parenting from the other person's side, right? How do you view dads in a child's life? Do you think they're unnecessary? Do you feel like they're not needed? So you create conflict, interference, and all of these other things to make their journey a lot tougher. Because I have lots of calls. I've had several calls in the last few weeks where, you know what the men say? I see why men walk away. I see why men are absent. Because the battles that they have to go through just to have a relationship with their children is overwhelming. And I see the memes and all of these posts that says, there's nothing that could keep a man from his child and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, have you seen like a high conflict mother? Oh, there's something that can keep you from her. There's something that can do that. But if we don't heal, we'll constantly be the conflict. We'll constantly be the person creating issues in the situation. And sometimes some of you are in situations that are so subtle. The manipulation is so subtle, or you're so used to the manipulation. When someone points it out to you, you're like, no, I'll do whatever to be with my child. And I don't care what you say. I don't care how it looks. And I don't have to go back to my childhood because me and my children have great relationships. Yeah, but at what expense? I see posts all the time where women are like, ain't nobody coming in front of my kids. My kids come before my husband. My kids come before everybody. And I'm like, is that biblical? Can you imagine being the other party? Because most of the women who made the statement that I watched on this group that I'm in, most of them are now married to someone who they don't have children with, or those children aren't that person's children. Yeah, those children aren't that person's children. Right? That's how I'm supposed to say it. Yes. So they're not, that's not their father. So if I have children and I'm in a new relationship, the person I'm in a relationship, they second or third to my children, depending on how many children I have. And they know it. Ain't nobody gonna, you guys realize that's a trauma response, right? And that's going to create conflict in your current relationship because you didn't heal from the time your mother chose a man over you. Uh-oh. These are the stories that are being told, like your mother picked another man over you and you know, your mother, you didn't like that. What we have to recognize is when we show our children loving, solid foundational relationships, they get that they don't come first. That the parents put them first, but they don't come first. The mission is to put the children first after God and our relationship, but they don't come before God and you, the two of you. But when we go back, because you didn't heal the broken place over here and the broken situation from the other relationship, now you're juggling all of this trauma, struggling who goes first, who's supposed to be up next, how I'm supposed to cleave to my wife and leave my mama and my daddy and my child and my this and that. And so you're juggling all this trauma because you haven't even healed it and been able to sit it down. And so it's fueling your conflict in your co-parenting because it's requiring you to constantly revisit the pain of the relationship. It's causing you to constantly revisit the unhealed trauma of your childhood. I did a conference this weekend, and I've been on a very interesting healing journey. And I did this conference, and it was a trauma-informed conference, pretty awesome, helping me recognize the barriers and the challenges within my own mindset that were established in my childhood and compound trauma that were created throughout my journey, and helping me be a better entrepreneur, right? Helping me, and I'm going to announce some things at the end of this. So you don't want to jump off of here because I got some good stuff coming up that I'm going to do. And it was all based from this conference that I'm pretty excited that I participated in. But when we were doing some of these meditations, things from my childhood were coming up. Like we talked about sexual assault and molestation. And just before this conference, I began to reframe that and have a different word. That person wasn't looking for a kid when I had that moment. But see, that's trauma. Some of you have molestation and sexual assault in your journey, but molestation in your childhood, and you haven't worked through it and you haven't healed from it. And so it's now fueling the conflict in your co-parenting. Well, how could that possibly be fueling it? Because you don't trust men. Or if you were molested by women, you don't trust women. Or you've womanized because you had some sexual assault by a mother, an auntie, an older woman, whatever that is. You had some sexual assault going on in your journey, some molestation by a woman. And now what you do to pay that woman back is you're a womanizer, and you put yourself in a situation that I cannot explain to you how that impacts your journey. And now you have babies with women that your only mission was to hate them and despise them. And now you have children with these people. And now you've got trauma upon trauma. Oh gosh. Okay, Stephen, I see you on here. Stephen says, I'm so in love with you. This is exactly the understanding I was struggling to have with my ex-wife, the mother of my child. It's a spiritually immature mentality stemming from unresolved trauma. It's so important for people to recognize what's really going on in parental alienation cases. You are so exactly right with your words. Well, thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. This is something that we think about when we're in it, but we'll suppress it because all the documents, or no one's really talking about it. No one's really saying anything about it. So we'll just suppress it and keep it moving. We don't want to acknowledge it because we're like, well, but we have to go back to our pain and say, is my fatherless journey fueling the high conflict with my ex-partner? Is the trauma and the abuse that I experienced growing up causing me to do things that I shouldn't be doing in this relationship with my ex? I don't really know what I'm doing. Parents in high conflict divorces or breakups are similar to all of us because we all carry baggage that hasn't adequately been addressed. That's what you got to recognize. I'm not calling you out, and I'm not saying that you're wrong because you haven't healed your trauma from your childhood. A lot of people haven't healed it. And even when you're on a journey of healing it, trust me, stuff keeps coming up. Many parents have had abusive childhoods, which caused them to become emotionally triggered in intimate relationships. Take that in. Breathe that in for a minute. And I know some of you are like, well, abuse. I wasn't beaten as a child, but were you emotionally abused? Did your mother use harsh words? Did you watch your parents go back and forth concerning battling you? Were you ever in a situation where your parents played tug of war with you physically during an exchange? Were you neglected? See, some of us, let me say this. Some of us grew up in the season of latchkey kids. We came home from school. Nobody was home but us or our siblings, if we had siblings, and we were required to do things for ourselves that an adult should have been there to do for us. That's neglect, people. That's a form of abuse. I know we lived in a season where mama had to work. Doesn't make it any less neglect. I know we don't want to have that conversation. I know we don't want to step into that space, but that's what it was. And it still is. And you're dealing with the ramifications of that. Some of you are introverts, not by personality, but simply by the fact that you, I'm going to mute the line. I see people jumping on here. I'm sorry. Someone's jumping on my hi, William. How are you? I'm sorry. I am doing Clubhouse for the first time tonight. And so there are individuals. I'm muting you, sir. I'm muting you. And I'm sorry. I'm trying to mute you. Give me 1 second and I'll let you on because I know you want to say something. But I want us to realize that was neglect when we were in those situations, growing up as latchkey kids. Like, yes, it was a necessity because our parents weren't together and we were in these fatherless homes. But at the same time, we have to recognize that's a form of neglect when you have to take care of yourself in moments when your parents should have been there to take care of you. And now you're in these relationships carrying all of this baggage and you're being emotionally triggered in your intimate relationships, which is then causing high conflict in your co-parenting. Uh-oh, he left. I was gonna let him come on the stage, but I had to get that out. And so as we're being triggered in these emotionally, intimate relationships, there's a fear of being abandoned that may, let me tell you right now, the fear of being abandoned may be the most common trigger many of us are going to experience in high conflict relationships, whether that's divorce, separation, custody battles. The abandonment is real, because how many of you felt abandoned as kids? Raise your hand. You felt abandoned by your father who wasn't present. You felt abandoned in situations that, your mother, maybe you needed her at a football, basketball game, but because she had to work, she couldn't come. And so you were there and you didn't have anybody in the stands cheering you on while you watched all the other kids have someone in the stands. That's abandonment. And you feel it. It may not really be abandonment in that way, but that's what you feel as a kid, because as children, we have a myopic view and perspective that is being developed. And so we take on what it is we believe at that moment, and it walks with us and it becomes core beliefs. And when you actually experience abandonment, guess what happens? You may actually act out physically and emotionally in abusive ways. Are you experiencing that in your co-parenting? Are you experiencing that? Is that something that you see from the other party? Can you have compassion for the other person, knowing that what's really happening to them is your relationship was brought to help reveal, expose, and heal the trauma that was within them, but because they refused to actually walk through the healing process, it now has caused a breaking and a breakup, a separation, whatever it is. Maybe it wasn't anyone's fault per se. Maybe it was just the childhood, the unhealed trauma got the best of the relationship. And so part of the pains of co-parenting is from your childhood. And you're revisiting it over and over through triggers during every exchange. You're revisiting the fact that you made vows. And I'm going to keep bringing this up because as children, we see the conflict our parents are in. We see it, we see it, we see it. And in seeing it, we make vows to ourselves. I ain't never going to be like my mother. I'll never be like my father. I'm going to be the best father I can possibly be. I'm going to be the best mother I can possibly be. And you grow up and become a parent, and guess what happens? You become exactly the parent you said you wouldn't be. You abandon your children. Not every father who's absent is absent by choice. That's a real thing. Some of them have been forced out. And many of you don't believe that because you got your own thing going on. You don't recognize that you're the one who did the forcing out because of your childhood trauma. You don't even realize that's what you did. You took the same blueprint from your mama's playbook and from her mama's playbook. And now you've created 3 generations of fatherlessness. Maybe even more, depending on where you fall in the line. This has to be resolved. Individual therapy can help you. The goal is to become self-aware of what your triggers are, right? And get techniques that you can learn so you don't act in an aggressive way or withdraw. Because I don't care what y'all say. Withdrawing, isolation, stonewalling, those are all trauma responses. You got to act in a place of calmness rather than getting angry and coming from a place of fear. Going to co-parenting classes, it's okay to do that. This was not your plan. So you don't have the tools to deal with this, right? You don't have the tools to deal with this. You think you do, but you don't. because you didn't get the tools. Where'd you get the tools from to deal with this? Tell me. Where did you get the tools to eating sugar is one of yours? Some people, look, yes, emotional eating is a thing. Yeah, that's a thing. Weekend Dad says it, yeah. Is that what it is? Weekday Dad. I'm sorry. Weekday Dad says eating sugar is one of his. Hey, Kantar, how are you? He said that's how he copes and deals with it. Some people, emotional eating is part of that journey. It is. And what do? A lot of people have different, oops. Did I mute myself? Somebody, no. Oh, see, I'm messing up on my Clubhouse. I done muted myself. Nobody heard all of that good stuff I just spewed. Let me get my life together over here. Here's the other part. Like, own what it is that you do to cope. Now, part of the thing that the conference that I did this weekend, he was like, I don't like coping mechanisms. I want to thrive. Hey, Nick, how are you? I want to thrive. I want to live. I'm doing this and that. I'm living my best life. And I was like, I get it. He didn't like cognitive behavior. That wasn't something that he liked. I'm a cognitive behavioral practitioner. That is something I am certified and trained in. But I'm now trained in trauma-informed healing. And I can't wait to take this to a whole nother level. I got some stuff to announce later. Telling you got to stay tuned because there's some good stuff coming. But I want to continue to let you know that not everybody's going to have a perfect situation. Not everybody's going to marry the person, stay with the person, raise children with that person. Sometimes people have to have relationships that go, by the wayside, and they got to deal with that. And then they marry someone else and bring them into the fold. Right. And so here we are. You're married to someone else. I have to watch my children be raised in a home with another man and ladies with another woman. And it's causing conflict. Why does that cause conflict for you? You didn't want the person, or it didn't work out between y'all. Why is it causing conflict? Is it really what you think it is? You didn't want them. So why do you care? Because it's making you revisit the childhood trauma. It's making you do it. It's triggering you. I tell my children all the time, my clients all the time, I'm claiming that. They know their names. I've been talking to them all week. I do. I talk to my children in the spirit, whether y'all know that or not. Children they somewhere else before they come here. And I believe that. And so I've been talking to them all for 2 weeks now. Because mommy is healing her womb and everything in there and getting rid of things so that my children don't have to pass through that. They don't have to bring stuff that I refuse to overcome. They're not coming. They're not going to be developed in that. I refuse. Do you hear me? Refuse. I don't remember where my point was, but before I even said that, but I don't even remember where I was. Weekday Dad said fear. Are you guys afraid? Are you living in fear? Oh, I was saying my clients. One of the things we learn is triggers are our teachers. One of the beautiful things that we learned during the meditation was the last meditation we did on Sunday. Fear is your compass. So if you fear it, walk in that direction. If fear shows up, go in that direction. Oh, woo! Isn't fear like danger, stranger danger, all that? Yeah, no. Why are you afraid? Because it's something new and it's something different. Fear is even illuminating your path. Ooh. Say that again. Fear is illuminating your path. If you fear it, it doesn't mean that it's dangerous. It may just be, it's risky. Count the cost. Is it worth walking in that direction? So many of us stay in comfort and safety, refusing to grow. Grow is tension. Grow is where the tension is, right? You can't grow unless there's tension. Because growth, right? Tension, it pulls, it lengthens, it causes you to grow. Many of us want to get out of it when it's hot. I appreciate the conference this weekend because he helps set you up for an entrepreneurial neurological system, because many entrepreneurs fail. Why do you fail? Because you don't know how to ride the wave. He was like, you need to learn how to surf. You got to have this nervous system. Many of us want the calmness of the wave. Many of us want calm waters in order to actually sail and get to where we're going. But without any wind or waves, you're never going to get to that location unless you got some type of motor behind you. But think about sailing. What it reminded me of when he said that is the fact that we read in scripture where Jesus was in the boat sleep. And right before they got on the boat, Jesus said, let's go to the other side. He's already said it. Not only are we going to the other side, he was like, let's go to the other side. Like, it's done. And so the winds and the waves come and he's asleep. And you would think, well, why are you asleep? Like, you sleep and all of this stuff is happening to us. How you going to be asleep? You're going to sleep on us? How about he was reassured they were going to get to the other side? And you can't get to the other side of a situation without the winds and the waves. But so many of us are like, peace be still, calm the waters. No, the reason he said, ye of little faith, and he calmed the waters because they couldn't see. Sometimes you need to surf. Sometimes you need to ride the wave to get to the other side. And in order to heal, you got to ride the wave. Many of you are not healing because you refuse to ride the wave. You refuse to allow the winds and the waves and the adversities and the tension and the things to cause you to grow up. So you opt out of even the relationship. You've literally hit the button on divorce because you refuse to ride the waves. I'm going to say it on here. Many of you are divorced and you were never supposed to be. Many of you are in separations and situations and breakups that you were never supposed to be in. But because you refused and rebelled to do what you were supposed to do to heal your stuff, now your children are repeating a cycle that you were meant to break. Breathe on that one. I'm learning to breathe on some of this stuff because I take y'all really fast through things. Some of you were never meant to get a divorce. I heard that in my spirit just now. You weren't even meant to get a divorce. You weren't even called for a breakup. You weren't even called to be in this separation. Some people have to go through a separation in order to heal that stuff because you can't heal in the same household. Yeah, my spouse, she was crazy and he was crazy. And he's a narcissist and all that. Yeah, after the fact. But you chose them in love for some reason. All of you weren't duped. And for those who are watching in replay, put replay in the comments for me so that I can see the comments as they come in. But I need you to understand the pains of your co-parenting is happening because you have to revisit the unhealed trauma of your childhood. And in revisiting it, it's triggering you like you ain't. And then you're blaming the other person. You thinking it's all about the other person. Some stuff is about the other person. But I got to ask you, why did you choose them in the first place? Was it a situation where y'all just hooked up and then a baby was, and you feel like it was a shotgun wedding? Or did you choose this person out of love? Because I'm going to tell you something that I learned in marriage. Covenant exposes the trauma that you need to heal in a safe environment. Many do the work before marriage and they get to a certain point. And at that certain point, it's time for you to get in covenant so that you can go to the next level. And others haven't done any work. And as soon as they get married, they're like, what is all of this? Right? And you're trying to run because you're like, I'm good. I don't have any trauma. I don't know what you mean. I don't have any trauma. I'm not going back to my past, child. Why you want me to revisit all of that? Some people ignore it and deny that it even existed. And others are just downright rebellious and refuse to go back. And if you're a parent who's doing that, because as an adult child, because I'm somebody's child, as an adult child, reliving some of the things my mother experienced and then going back and trying to have a conversation with her about them. Conversation we had 2 weeks ago. I didn't cut her off this time. I released her. Different place. I released her. She needed to be released. There's too much conflict and dysfunctional and toxic behavior for us to be in relationship because there's anger and frustration there, not from my side. I was so proud of myself. There was a releasing Because whether I knew it or not, growing up in a situation when you're the oldest child in a fatherless home, you're the other parent. My mother literally accused me in text of abandoning my family when I went off to college, y'all. Well, I'm not the daddy. I can't abandon my family when I grow up and I'm 20 something years old going to college. Why was that the text? Because I was the other parent in the household. Some of you are having this tension in your relationship with your parent because the relationship you had was dysfunctional, it was toxic, and it was not healthy. And so how that relationship plays out is like it was a relationship with a spouse or an ex. That's what I was like, girl, I release you. Enjoy and live your best life because you can't live it with me. And I told you guys this last week, like that's part of my journey. Not because I'm upset, not because I'm angry, because there comes a place where you're going to have to release people. And parents, this is what you have to realize. When you put your children in high conflict divorce situations, high conflict breakups, your children, when they become adults, they're going to make a decision. If you're the one who's always creating the conflict with the father, then you're probably going to be the one creating the conflict with the child who chooses to have a relationship with the father. High conflict is coming from your childhood trauma. You can't co-parent with this other person simply because you haven't healed the childhood trauma that you're currently trying to deny, trying to act like it, rebel against it, act like it didn't happen. Oh, we're not supposed to visit our past. What are we doing in our past? Let the past be the past. The past is literally triggering you and living in your household and alive and well in your relationships. And if you look at even the individuals that you've created children with, you promised yourself that you would not have children in this situation. But then, ladies, you picked the very man that you said you would never pick. And he is actually the father who abandoned you. You picked the very man you said you wouldn't pick because you didn't ask deeper questions, because you weren't living in the true reality that's within your heart. You weren't living there. So now you're dealing with a situation that this man reminds you of the father who abandoned you. This man reminds you of the situation that you grew up in and said that you would never do. Oh, I'm going to be the best mom. I'm never going to do this to my children. My children are going to have a 2-parent home. And then now you've put your children in a dysfunctional relationship, fighting not to repeat the cycle when the choice was already the wrong choice to begin with. When the choice was already repeating the cycle. You just didn't know it because your parents didn't share how they got there. Your parents didn't share how they even got into relationships. Weekday dad said he eats sugar. Some of you actually sleep around as a coping mechanism. And when you sleep around, guess what happens? You make babies. And you make babies from a situation where you were just trying to find some relief from the pain and the trauma that you were feeling. And now every time you see this child or you're doing this exchange with this child, once again, you're revisiting the pain of your childhood. You're revisiting it. What do you do? Okay, Dr. Torri, you're telling me all this stuff I got going on and what I'm doing. And okay, I get it. I got to go to my past. What do I need to do? I'm going to give you some things you need to do. Janie said, Jesus, fix it now, please. Oh my God, yes. Yeah. We need fixing. We definitely need fixing. I want to tell you, Janie, that's a great word, right? I had to look up the word fix, and I had to look that up recently. Do you know fixed means to settle? It means to settle, to build a foundation, like fixed on a wall, fixed in a situation like stable. You guys need some stability. You need something established in your heart and in your foundation that's going to get you to the other side. It's confidence is one of the things. Confidence to know that God is a healer and that taking you back through this, I love the journey I'm on right now because I recognize that the journey that I'm currently in is giving me, because I'm going to say in, I'm not even on it, but I'm in it. I'm immersed in it. It feels horrible. It makes you revisit pains that you didn't want to deal with before. But guess what? What those pains allow you to do when you're going back through it, it allows you to experience it and be immersed in it, but then choose differently. You now know what choosing that way does, right? So now you're going through it again. Our minds have neurotransmitters. So trauma is stuck up here. That then like we feel it here, right? But it's stuck up here in our conscious and in our subconscious. And so when you go back through it, the first thing your brain is saying is no, 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 don't want to go back that way. No, no. But maybe that's the way you got to go in order to rewire that thought process, in order to heal from that trauma. I had a situation a few weeks ago, and I'm going to be delicate in how I phrase this because I don't want to out anybody. It was at church. Someone was literally lying on me. And while I was on the phone with them, I was like, yeah, no, I do not have the capacity to deal with you today. I do not. And I'm not going to, because I know you're lying. I know you said it. And I was like, I'm done. At the time, I was texting my pastors and saying to them, yeah, I'm done with that. Anything else you need me to do? Because I'm not doing that anymore. Well, in the past, when I'd been in church situations and someone had lied on me, and the key word was someone, because it was never revealed to me who the person was. They were just able to go back and forth to talk to certain people who were, I guess, in levels above me and have conversations with them. In the midst of having those conversations, I was demonized. And I knew I didn't do what was being said that I did. I was like, I didn't do that. This time, come to find out, one of my pastors got in the car, went to the person's house and said, fix it. Janie, here we go. Fix it now. I get a voicemail or an audio message. I'm really sorry, blah, blah, blah. Didn't mean to do that. You're right. I wasn't being honest, blah, blah, blah. We then had a meeting over the phone with my pastors, and they were like, nope, we know who you are. I was like, I don't like to be painted a way that I'm not okay with this, blah, blah, blah. We went through all of that. And they're like, nope, we watched your character. And I've had character flaws throughout my journey. Ain't nobody perfect, right? But I've had things, but this was not that. And I have learned, see, I'm choosing differently. So I've learned something. And when my pastors did that, and I got on the phone and then I had a meeting with the person, and they were like, you know what? I was just saying all of that to save my butt. I knew I'd done some things wrong. I knew I wasn't doing everything right. And you called me on it, and I was doing it to save my butt. I want you guys to know that healed every church hurt situation I had had. Why? Because the pastors did something different. They did something different. And even when I spoke to them, they were like, yep, most churches, in the sense or the sake of saving the ministry or protecting the ministry, they'll err on the side of caution, right? They didn't do that. And it healed every situation I'd been in concerning church hurt. Janie, they fixed it. They established and made me stable in my encounters in spiritual situations. I no longer do the thing in my mind that I had been doing from churches that had hurt me years ago. I'm saying and telling you this story because many of you need that same situation in your co-parenting experience. When you go to pick up your children, all of the angst and the anxiety that you're feeling before you get there and all of that, choose differently next time. Choose differently. How you communicate, choose differently. Let me give you some things you can do. We're talking about healing your childhood trauma in order to co-parent effectively. Stay with me, right? So as we're talking about this, I want you to realize there's a few things you can do. Number one, stop doing life alone or in a silo with other broken people like you. If your whole squad is yes, and yep, we all going through this. I tell women sometimes they're like, oh, none of my girlfriends get child support. No, nobody pay child. Then you with the wrong squad. You need to find some chicks who getting child support because clearly that's the vibe in the group. Can't none of y'all get no child support payments? Come on now. Got to change your surroundings. Stop living in silos with other broken people. People who got the same brokenness you have. There's one thing of having a peer group and you all are going through it and there's someone to facilitate that. But it's another thing just to be in a group of girls and guys who all you do is bash men and you bash women. It's one of the things I can't stand about this whole MAGTOW and all this other stuff where why men don't get married and blah, blah, blah. You know how many men y'all dying early because you refuse to be married and you need to do it because there's some life-saving stuff going on, but nope, we against marriage. We ain't never getting married again. What benefit does it have for a man to get married? Yes, Cherie. She said it. Trauma bonding. You guys are all on. I had to mute some people. Cherie, they was driving me nuts. Always talking about what are the benefits of men being married. Y'all need to check yourself. That's from brokenness. You need to stay off social media. Stop advocating till you get some healing. Okay? Because you're constantly, with that conversation, you are still fueling the conflict of co-parenting. That's fueling it. Maybe you didn't know that, but that's fueling it. Okay. I want you to stop living in silos or doing life solo. Number two, some of you, in order to heal from your childhood, breathe. You need to go back to your childhood home and visit it. Some of you need to go stand in the yard. I don't suggest doing that without a therapist. Some of you need to do that. Someone I consider a friend at this point. He has a documentary, and I was blessed to be able to do NBA All-Star Weekend with him in 2020, Rhyme Fest. Did this documentary called In My Father's House. It's been on HBO. I want to say it's on Amazon Prime. I don't know where else it is, but I'm telling you, it's an amazing journey. He actually goes back and buys his childhood home. He buys the childhood home. And then he sets out on a journey to heal his past. He goes and looks for his father, finds out his father's an alcoholic, living on the streets. He's homeless. And he goes from there. That journey of watching him move into that childhood home, which he still owns, still lives in Chicago, going through the healing process. And it's tough. That tension and tug of war between him and his father is very real. It's very real. His dad's an alcoholic. He doesn't do what some of these people do. Get your dad off the street, move him into the house. No. He drops that dude off at that homeless shelter every night by the time he needs to be there and get in line. And they rushing. He's getting them food and stuff. And he's making sure his dad has what he needs, but he's dropping him back off at the shelter. Part of his healing journey was buying his childhood home and moving into it. I'm just asking some of y'all just go to the grass and visit it. Maybe knock on the door if somebody lives there and say, hey, can I grew up here. Because what some of the things you're going to see is the house that you grew up in. Remember, like the rooms seem so big, but they're actually really small. Like you're going to get a different perspective and a different reality. It's a way for you to reconnect to your childhood and revisit some things from your past that maybe you've forgotten. And by going back, you can recapture some of those moments and those memories to help you heal And yes, it's going to be painful. And that's why I'm not suggesting you do this without a therapist. I am not suggesting that, but I am suggesting that you do it. Another thing I need you to recognize is for some of you, you're going through a crisis or a problem even right now. And you have this problem because it's revealing that you need to reflect on your past, that you need to go back and you need to reevaluate how you developed and how you obtained your values and what led you to make the decisions that you've made in life. This is going to heal your co-parenting situation. Doesn't look like it because it seems like it's in an opposite direction. No, roll backwards in order to roll forward. How did you get to the personality you have? Is this like, we're going to go back to what Cherie said, trauma bonding. Some of you have had trauma bonding even within your own family. Your father abandoned you. So guess what? You're all bonded together with your mother. And you got this trauma bonding situation, a loyalty bond to your mother, who might have even been the culprit who created it. But because you're bonded through this trauma, you won't even ask that question. You won't even entertain a different version of the story. You won't even think about, well, what if my mother created this? What if my mother has lied to me about who my father is? Trauma bonding. How are these ideas and things developed? One of the craziest things, and I'm just going to use the Black community for a moment. What goes on in this house stays in this house. That is toxic. Can't share nothing, can't say anything, nothing. So then you create that value in your own life. Living in isolation. Living guarded. Anybody who lives guarded in isolation, who's got a demeanor of always guarded, and that's trauma. It's trauma. Many of you have lived through abuse and trauma or suffered, from some kind of abuse or trauma, not realizing that there is hope. There is hope for you by returning to the site where these things happen. You'll be able to find closure and you'll be able to leave with a sense of healing. But because of all of those emotions and feelings that you got going on, you refuse to go back. Go back. Feel all of that and now choose differently. It'll heal you here. It'll heal you here. Hey, Dr. Daisy. She said, Dr. Torri, awesome conversation. You're certainly doing your part, helping make this world a better place. I'm doing my best. Cherie says, it's so sad how many folks won't take the honest self-evaluation and believe they don't need help. They're fine. Come on. They're fine is like, it is a prison that you set yourself in. And being fine has now created high conflict within your co-parenting situation. Rebelling against the opportunity to heal has now set you in a position where you now have conflict. Now you're in a divorce that God never even called you to be in. Now you're in a separation or a breakup that God never even called you to be. That's not even a part of it. Because I can tell you, some of you chose your partner because you knew God said that was your partner. Some of you chose your partner because the sex was good or you had a baby with them. That's something you've got to evaluate for yourself. But even in choosing them for that reason, they could have still been the partner that was designed for you to help you heal. Because you didn't want to heal, now you've hit the eject button on the relationship. I'm out. It's too hot up in there. Yeah, Cherie, it's everyone but them. Or how about this? You know it's you, but nah, I ain't doing the work to heal. I refuse. I ain't going to do it. Don't worry. Nope, not going to do it. Because I can go over here and these people ain't going to even bother me about healing. Do you want to live here or you want to live in your best self? See, the problem is you're praying and asking God to do these things. And some of you, this is your prayer. This is the answer to your prayer. God, heal me. God, fix me. God, do this. I want a better relationship. I don't want to be alienated from my children anymore. Some of you, your alienation will end when you do this work. Facts. When you do this work, your alienation will be over. Speak it. Yeah. That's what it is. But you don't want to do the work. You want to keep dragging this on. Some of you will stop alienating when you do this work. You'll be able to see with a different set of eyes, a different perspective. But you don't want to do that. So you continue the pains of co-parenting, which now is causing you to repeat the cycle and the trauma to your children in your children's lives. Today, you have some steps and some answers. You have some steps and some answers as to how you can actually walk through this, actually get the things that you need to get so that you can move forward. You have it. It's up to you whether or not you take it. It's up to you whether or not you do the work to get it done. I'm not going to sit on here and constantly try to beat you over the head to do what it is that you need to do. But this, I knew 1, 2, and 3 series or sessions 1, 2, and 3 on this series, I knew was leading up to this one. Yep, you miss your children. Yep, you're revisiting the breakup. But more than anything, you're being triggered to revisit your childhood. Many of you have an insecure attachment. Daddies, listen. Many of you have an insecure attachment to your children because of your fatherless journey, and you haven't healed it. You haven't figured out how to cut the strings, cut the apron strings. You got children who are adults. You're an adult. Your mother and your father haven't cut the apron strings. Why? Because it's an insecure attachment. How we attach to our parents is or how we attach to other people in relationships is demonstrated. How am I saying this? Let me say this right. How we attach to other people in relationships demonstrates the attachment pattern and how we grew up and we attach to our parents. I had to get that right. Some of us have I had an insecure attachment. Yes, Cherie, it's codependency. An anxious attachment. Because I didn't want to be abandoned. So I was perfect, right? My mother taught me if you do things perfectly, you get acknowledged and blah, 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 right? And you don't reap the bad consequences. So I was trying to be perfect in my marriage so that I wouldn't have to deal with divorce or separation or whatever that was. And it was seen as, oh, you trying to be perfect. No, I'm trying not to be left. I'm trying not to repeat a cycle. And so I'm a people please. Yeah. I tell on me all the time. So I'm a people please to ensure that this doesn't happen. Absolutely, Cherie. Separation anxiety. That was me. But it was seen in a different kind of way. I wasn't trying to outdo nobody. I was just trying to not repeat a pattern. Not cause trauma. I didn't heal from enough trauma. I ain't trying to create anymore. I'm trying to hold on. Right? If I got to suppress some things, if I got to do this, I'm going to do all of those things. Yeah, that was me. Dr. Torri J. Yeah, that was me. But I've learned a lot in the last few months. I've grown a lot in the last few months. And I want you guys to grow. I want you guys to see how you can walk through this situation yourself. And I'm going to share something on the Dr. Torri J page tomorrow about even in my relationship with God, how I treated God like a fatherless child. That was something I learned recently too. I have a real relationship with God. I don't play games. And he checks me. I don't call him an it or she or whatever. Like, it's a he to me. I don't care. It's my spirit. It's my inner spirit. I'm connected to it on a deeper level. And it's gone even higher in the work that I've been doing. But I've given you some key tools on how to grow, on how to be who you need to be But you got to go back. You got to go back. And avoiding going back, it's going to give you the life you got. You not going back doesn't get you any closer to the life you desire. So I'm going to end it with that, but I want to give you guys some things that are happening. September 28th through the 30th. Afraid of abandonment affects our relationship with others. Absolutely, Aunt Eldrina. It actually does. September 28th through the 30th, I am actually going to do a 3-day challenge. It is free. Free. I don't do everything for free. I do Healing Tuesday for free. But I'm going to do a thing. This is what we're going to call it, Redeeming Your Fatherless Story. So in 3 days, I'm going to walk you through this challenge where you're going to redeem your fatherless story, right? It's going to be tough. This is not going to be easy. There's going to be some prompts. There's going to be some lives throughout those 3 days. There's going to be some journaling throughout those 3 days. I'm going to do 30-minute Facebook Lives, and I'm going to get you to a place where you redeem your fatherless story. Because many of you, the narrative you are living is the negative side of this fatherless story. You're like, well, Dr. Torri, how can you just talk so freely about it? Because I redeemed my fatherless story. Reunification is one way you can redeem it. But what if I can't reunite with my father? I'm going to show you exactly how you do that. You take hold of your own narrative. You are in control of your narrative, just like you're in control of your own pain. But one of the sessions is going to require you to go back into your pain. It's who I am, the root of it all, right? And part of this is setting you up for something else that I'm going to do. But I'm definitely going to give this to you free. Coaching became a part of what I jumped into because people were pulling on me to do it in 2020 during the pandemic. And I'm telling you now that 3-day challenge is a part of stepping into getting some coaching, but it's also going to help you redeem that place that has you locked and tied into dysfunctional cycles and patterns. I want to announce now that I want to say it's March 2020. I want to say it's the March 17th through the 22nd. I am doing an I've Got Daddy Issues retreat in Sedona, Arizona. My website, my new website is coming up. So I'm going to start putting it out there as soon as the website is done. But we're going to do a retreat, and you have a 5-day retreat, and then you can come in on the 3rd day of the retreat. There's a lot of 2022. Did I say 2020? 2022. We're going to do it March 2022. And in doing that, I got some heavy hitters. I got therapists. I got coaches. I got some people who are going to take you through the neuroscience of it all, right? I got some people who are going to go there, but I also have some people who are going to come. We're going to do fitness. We're going to do some African dance. We're going to do, because you got to get ways to get this stuff out of you. Movement is a part of getting this out of you. And so this is not a cheap retreat either. It's in Sedona, Arizona. When you see the package, don't freak out. There's installments. It includes everything but your flight. So just so you know. But I'm coming, we're going to do some serious work. And I am leaving very soon. So I'm going to have to juggle you guys come November because I'm leaving the country for a little while. I'm out of here. And God is opening doors. I can't share that one just yet. I'll probably should be able to share it next Tuesday. But I am sharing these things with you because there are open doors that are happening. Because I'm not sitting in a silo. I have 4 amazing women who are covering me in this season and prophesying and speaking to me. I have a therapist. I have business coaches now that I had before, but then I let them go. I have so many things moving to help me grow. Yes, I'm Dr. Torri J, right? I still need to grow. Heal thyself, healer. Deliver thyself, deliverer. Some of you think that you're so great and so this, and I'm an advocate and I'm this, but you don't even have coaches around you to help you get done. You don't even have a team around you, and you think a team means a staff. I've shared with you multiple times what a team means. My team is my personal trainer. I've even changed personal trainers at this point. I mean, some of you see me on my Instagram working out, in my Facebook. You see me working out. That's part of my coping mechanism to the stress. We can't get rid of stress, but we can manage that sucker. I'm not going to die early because I refuse to manage the stress. You guys need teams around you to help you through the pains of all of this, the trauma of all of it. I've got a personal trainer. I have business coaches. I have spiritual coaches and advisors. I have my OBGYN. I have my actual doctor. There's things you need in your life that many of you don't even have. So how are you going to make it through all of this trauma? All of this trauma. Many of you don't even know how to self-activate your own voice. I learned recently that part of the chronic illnesses that many of us have are coming from the issues that we cannot self-activate, that we can't live our own lives. We're still living the lives our parents want us to live. We're still living those lives. You can't even choose what it is you want. Living in the pains of co-parenting. So I'm telling you right now, I'm going to get off Clubhouse. I'm just trying to figure out how to stop this, right? In the room. And I hope those who are listening on Clubhouse, you got something out of this. And although I muted them for a moment, that was an accident. So I'm going to end this room and I'll go back to it another time. But I'm grateful that I was able to do that because I have not done Clubhouse at all. So that's cool. So I was able to do Clubhouse. And so those of you who are on here, let me see. She said, I need to listen to this later. I'm praying for tomorrow's court date. My son is finally going to get custody adjusted. He was out of work for 18 months due to COVID, like a lot of fathers. He's taking a job out of state and must be on site 2 weeks a month, hoping he gets more time with his boys when home. Mother is not cooperative. Pray for her healing. Sometimes you have to learn to find a distraction to our pain, fitness, and dance. Yeah, well, I'm not even going to call it a distraction. That's a coping mechanism, Charles. I have clients right now who one of the fathers in my fatherhood group, he's now bowling on a league on Sunday nights. That's not distraction. That's coping. That's a way to thrive and have a life. You got to find places and moments to have a life. And many people don't do that when they're not with their children. So, and it's stress management. Fitness is part of stress management. And I want you guys to learn that place of thriving. But I'm going to tell you, we're the 28th through the 30th. I'm going to start posting it. And I want you to start signing up. Just join it, right? And you're going to do this 3-day challenge with me. You're going to focus on 3 days where you're going to redeem your fatherless story. We're going to have to identify how you got here, right? We're going to have to identify your father wound. That's some of the work that I do in my coaching group. And for those of you who you like, well, I don't even need to get to that part. Dr. Torri, see, this is the thing I learned this weekend. I don't even promote this. That's part of I'm bad with my entrepreneurship on promotions. I do the lives, but I don't promote. Go to beyondfatherless.com. It's up there for now. It's going to change to a different website. It'll probably still have that URL attached to it somewhere. Go to beyondfatherless.com. Set up a 30-minute assessment with me. That's free. Now, the packages are different. They're going to cost you something. I am not called to do this work at the detriment of myself. I have knowledge. I have an expertise. And a lot of your therapists don't even know how to help you through this. So why not come to someone who knows how to help you through it, and you can pay them to do that. And this isn't reuniting with your children. That's something totally different. That's TFGF. This is something totally different. Thank you, Cherie. I appreciate Cherie thank you, Cherie. Thank you. I appreciate that. Go to beyondfatherless.com. Do the 30-minute assessment. It'll put you in my calendar. You can get on there and you can really figure it out. Like, what do I need? But one of the first things we do in the coaching is we literally identify how your father wound entered. We're going to do that with the work on this 3-day challenge. And I ain't charging you for it. For 3 days, you got me. Okay? So let's redeem our fatherless stories. I'm going to get off of here. I am 14 minutes past my time. And I got homework to do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I'm going to declare it on here. One of the things that I am really focused on is living exactly who God says that I am. Exactly who God says I am. No longer shrinking. Some of us shrink even when we're dope, even when we're amazing. but I wrote it on a card. It's right here and it sits in my face. I am the #1 reunification and healing expert in the world. Period. That's who I'm going to be. That's who I am. That's who I am. The #1 reunification and healing expert around fatherlessness, let me be clear, in the world. That's who I am. And I'm excited for you guys to watch that happen. All right. So I'm going to get off of here. You guys have an amazing rest of the week. I'm going to try to do some more lives. I got a lot of homework to catch up on. And so I look forward to continuing our conversation on Healing Tuesday, and we'll go from there. But you guys have a great night. Those who watched it in replay, hit that replay button. Let me know. You guys comment. Tell me what you think. Inbox me. Give me some more ideas concerning content, because some of this stuff comes from my heart and conversations that I have with people. But some of it comes from people inboxing me and saying, hey, I would like to have this conversation. Hey, I would love if you talked about this. Okay. So inbox me some ideas. All right. I will talk to you guys later. All right. Bye.